What's up everyone? In this video I'm going to talk about the Nikon D5000 and see if it's still good in 2023 and so on. And yes, it is. Released back in April of 2009, this 14-year-old camera still holds up. Brand new with the 18-55 lens, this camera was about $850. And I remember it was about that much because back in 2010 my dad was about to go out of the country for a trip and he bought this camera, and I'm just really glad to have this camera back in my hands. And I remember using it back in 2010 and it was really great. A lot better than the Nikon D40 I had back then. And now you can find these cameras for about $100 to $150 depending on the condition it's in. And let's just go straight to the specs of the Nikon D5000. The Nikon D5000 has a 12.9 megapixel CMOS crop sensor. It has an ISO range between 100 to 6400. It has 11 AF points. It can shoot up to 3 FPS. It has a 2.5 LCD screen that flips, which is one of the things I really like about it. It has one memory card slot and it does do video recording. There's a lot of things I really like about this Nikon D5000, especially when I had my D40 when I first started out. But one of the things I really like about this camera is the image quality. Like I said earlier, when my dad bought it, I still had my Nikon D40. So when he got the D5000, I used it, kind of pretty much fell in love with the D5000 because when you're comparing it for the D40 to the D5000, it is a huge gap in technology. And I recently just came back from a trip and I gotta say, it's a very nice camera. The image quality is very good. Even with the 18-55, the images are quite sharp. Put a good lens on it, like the 51.8G, and it's gonna produce very good image quality. And another great thing about the D5000 too is the ISO performance, and it's actually quite good. Here's a few examples and let me know what you think in the comments. And also just throwing it out there, Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop does have a denoise tool, so you can definitely use the denoise tool to help you kind of get rid of those super grainy images too. And another thing I like about this camera is the flip screen. This was Nikon's first DSLR camera to have that flip screen too, from what I can remember, but if I don't, please comment below. Unlike the Nikon D5100, the Nikon D5000 screen can only twist and swivel like this. And it does come in super handy depending on the situations you're in, especially if you're like in a really tight corner or if you want to shoot above someone, flip that screen and you can frame your shot that way. And another great thing I like about the D5000 is the video recording. Yes, it does do video recording. It does record 1280 by 720, which is considered HD. And one of the cons, it's not really a con, but it's just one of the things I don't really like about the Nikon D5000 after using it, is the video autofocus. It's basically non-existent. I tried it on auto mode and I've tried some other switches. It's similar to the D90s where it's basically you're trying to focus on something and it's not focus at all. I've tried it with the face AF and it just does not autofocus on my face. So if you have any, suggestions, please comment below. That'd be helpful. And another thing is the video capabilities is very limited. You can only record up to 5 minutes. There is no 4K option, so this D5000 does not record 4K. And the max resolutions, like I said before, is only 1280 by 720. It's not really a con, but it's one of the things where I think some people would like to use. This camera won't be able to autofocus with the AFD lenses, the older AFD lenses. So you can mount it. It will work if you're using manual focus, but if you're trying to autofocus with the older AFD lenses that does not have the AFS motor in it, it's not going to autofocus. So as you can see here, it won't autofocus with my 51.4D, but if you do have a lens that has AFS on it, like the 80-200 AFS, it will autofocus with this camera. So is the D5000 still good in 2023? I really think it is. I took this camera on a trip up north, took it with me hiking, got some incredible images from it. And when I was hiking with it, I had the 80-200 on it and the Sigma 10-20, and those were phenomenal. It produced great quality images. And when I had the 10-20 on here, it didn't really feel like a very heavy camera. It actually felt a lot smaller than my Nikon Z6 and like the 40f2 that I had on. It was really portable. I didn't really have any issues carrying with it. Even when I did have some back pain and some leg pain, it was pretty easy to use. I'm not gonna lie, because it just felt really lightweight. And that's one of the things why I would still recommend the Nikon D5000, because it's portable, throw a good lens on it, and you still produce pretty good image quality. So yeah, the Nikon D5000 was the camera that made me move from my Nikon D40 to the D90. It was really the camera that really opened the door for me to other mid-level cameras like the D300S, the D700, and the Nikon D80. I believe from what I've read, the Nikon D5000 does share the same sensor as the D90, but it's in the size of the Nikon D60. So if you want the tech of the Nikon D90 in a body of the D60, the Nikon D5000 is the camera to get. So if you're just starting out, the Nikon D5000 is an excellent camera to start out with too. And for someone new, it's quite easy to navigate through too. I really like that you can see different settings through visuals. When I first had the D5000 back in my hands back in 2010, I remembered how easy it was to use too. It doesn't take too much effort to get good results with it. That's what I like about this camera. And a lens I would really recommend with this camera is probably the Nikon 51.8G. When I had the 51.8G on this camera, it produced amazing quality images. The images are contrasty, it was sharp at f1.8, and that just goes to show that a really good lens with a body like this is going to take you pretty far in your photography journey. And if you're considering the D5000, feel free to comment and ask. I think this camera is still a very good camera for beginners and hobbyists, especially if you're on a budget. And I might have said this earlier, but this is Nikon's first DSLR that's considered to be an upper entry level camera. Please comment below and let me know what you think about this camera. And if you do have any questions, feel free to comment. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And I really appreciate everyone watching. And thanks again. I'll have links below where you can purchase a Nikon D5000 and other lenses I would highly recommend for this camera. And I definitely appreciate everyone watching. Thanks, and see you again.